and wandered through the local cemetery, soaking in the blue views of the 20-mile-long Jenay Lake and the thin line of Lake Michigan over the hills to the west. The quiet calm of my walk had been interrupted by the murr of a black and gray tabby cat who had blinked up at me from the graveside of Alonzo Tillotson, born 1847, died 1926. At the time, I knew nothing about cats due to my father's allergies and tried to shoo him away home. That, of course, hadn't worked. He'd followed me back to town, much to the amusement of passers-by. I'd taken him in, cleaned him up, realized that under the grime he was a black and white tabby, and contacted the local veterinarian. About 2 years old, Dr. Joe had said, so I dutifully run a found cat notice in the newspaper. Happily, the ad had gone unanswered, and the two of us were now bound to each other forever. In more ways than one, I muttered, batting away an airborne Eddie hair. What's that? Julia asked. I wonder how Eddie would like flying. I flapped my elbows. Bet he'd like it fine if he could be up front in the cockpit. Mrr. Julia and I laughed, but there was a lot of truth in what she'd said. Eddie, like most cats, was a control freak, and if he could tell the pilot where to go, he'd probably choose flying over driving. I thought about a world run by Eddie choices. No sudden loud noises, no rain, no wind, plenty of sunny spots, lots of nap time, and plenty of on-demand petting. Didn't sound all bad, except he'd probably ban all dogs, too. Julia tapped the top of Eddie's carrier with her toes. What's the plan for him? In or out? For the first time ever, we were stopping at Dooley Elementary School, roughly in the middle of Tonawanda County. Over the years, the population of the village of Dooley had dwindled to the point that, until recently, the school board had considered shuttering the building. A recent surge in remote work, however, had created an influx of families with young children, and the school's headcount was higher than it had been in decades. The morning's plan included a visit to the bookmobile by each classroom, then a Julia-led story time for all in the gymnasium. If everything went well, we'd do it again in 3 weeks and hope like crazy the kids would remember to return the books they'd borrowed, because we wouldn't be back until September. Julia's question of in or out referred to Eddie staying in the carrier or letting him out. Though he enjoyed the company of people in general, he was still a cat in possession of all his claws, and I was constantly mindful that a small child could be a little too enthusiastic in showering Eddie with affection. Not that anything horrible had ever happened, or even come close to happening, but I was determined that it should ever be so. In, I said, especially with the youngest kids. With the 4th and 5th graders, I'll open the carrier door. If he wants out, we'll keep an eye on him. If he wants to stay in, that's fine too. It wasn't fine, not completely, because there would be some very disappointed children, and a couple of disappointed teachers, if the bookmobile cat chose to stay in the carrier the entire time. Leah Wasson, the 5th grade teacher who'd requested the visit, had confessed that Eddie was the main draw. In addition to a fuzzy feline, the 31-foot-long vehicle, 23,000 pounds when loaded, had lots of books, more than 3,000 of them. It also had print magazines, jigsaw puzzles, CDs, DVDs, video games, e-readers, and electronic tablets. And in the last year, thanks to some odd donations, we'd also started lending fishing poles, small power tools, ukuleles, snowshoes, and a croquet set. The library staff had had a number of long discussions about the appropriateness of the sports equipment, and since the vote had been split, we'd trooped upstairs and asked our boss to make the final decision. Graydon Kane, the best library director ever, had looked at us, his expression one of mild exasperation tinged with a hefty dollop of amusement. "You're making this more complicated than it needs to be," he'd said. "What's the library's mission?" The others had looked at me, and I'd quoted what was literally etched into the wall at the library's entrance. "The Chilson District Library," I said, "provides materials and services to help community residents obtain..."